Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your host. I have with me today an alienated father, Matthew Gordon, who's going to share his story of alienation, talk us through how he recognized it, where he's at today, and what that was like being separated from his children. Matt, thank you so much for joining. Why don't you go ahead and get us started? Tell us a little bit about you and how this all started.
For one, thank you for doing this and getting this out there, because I think there's not enough people seeing that these things actually happen, and which was a difficult thing for me because I didn't find any support or anything like that. So again, my name is Matthew Gordon. I grew up in Vermont. I joined the Navy right after high school, traveled the world for 12 years, got out of the Navy and immediately started a family. Was married for 20 years, 2 sons from her previous marriage and relationship. And so I was immediately a dad to a 4-year-old and a 12-year-old. And then along came our youngest son, who is now 17. And that's kind of when, not the time he was born, but about 8 years ago, things started really shaking up. I discovered that she was having a relationship with actually my son's coach, and which was very interesting, and seeing messaging between the two, and she was trying to get our son onto the coach's team. That kind of drew in, okay, we need counseling. We got to find out what's going on in our marriage. I couldn't figure out what was going on. There's a bunch of things, and the only way I can explain it is I had a puzzle, had a bunch of pieces. Some of them fit, some of them didn't. But overall, I didn't know what the big picture was. And then one time I just did a search for people who blame other people for what they do, and this whole 2-page document of a husband going through something with his wife, and it was exactly the same as what I was going through. It was so scarily the same that I emotionally lost it, because oh my god, this thing, it's a thing, because for all these years I'm going, what is going on? And so that led me into researching more about what was going on and things that were happening. And so with my son at that time, we were always close, always did a lot of things together. He eventually, when he was younger, enjoyed baseball as I do. And so I was helping him, go through practices, and, I helped him with Cub Scouts, coach and a leader and all that different stuff with not only him, but the older boys as well. So I think during the beginning of the chaos with another man in our relationship and with our son, the first time I really noticed it is we were in the process of going through counseling. We're still living together. My son was at a friend's house, like couple houses down, and he was supposed to be coming back to dinner because I had made pizza or whatever. Well, his mom drove by, and she's like, oh, she kept on telling him to get in the car. And I'm like, well, he's going to eat dinner. Well, no, he needs to get. So I could see him kind of like going, okay, what do I do? And he gets in the car with his mom and drives off.
How old was he?
He was 8 or 9, probably 9, somewhere around, maybe 8, as young as 8. he comes back like 20, 30 minutes later. I was like, "Where did you guys go?" "Oh, we just drove around." I was like, "All right." Well, I think and then that was kind of the point where I knew that it was not gonna go well for me because he wasn't gonna listen to me, and then realizing that, oh, this is kind of the same thing she did with the older boys as well. Um, so that's kinda where it I realized that something very, very bad was happening as far as his relationship or, his and my relationship.
So you said that happened with the older children. Their father did not play a role in their life when you married and raised them?
So the I call him the middle child, the 4-year-old at that time, his dad was there every other weekend. He lived locally. The oldest son's dad actually ended up moving from to Connecticut. I'm currently in California. So he didn't see him maybe twice during the 5 or 6 years I was raising him. And then the middle son every other weekend and occasionally maybe a couple trips during that time as well. But yeah, that was it.
And did you notice during that time, that relationship with the boys' dads, whether they were local or not, did you notice in retrospect it was intentional that they weren't more an active part of their life?
Retrospect, I can kind of understand where they were coming from as far as, and one of the comments that was made about the middle son's dad that he wasn't going to be around until he was 18. So I thought at that time, I was like, okay, that was kind of weird. I mean, I didn't have any ill will against them for any of that and not and just because okay I don't know exactly what the circumstances were so I can't really judge them if you will for doing what did but now when I look back I can totally understand why they did it and yeah and there's I totally get it.
So let's go back to you. You knew that things were going to change. What happens after that?
So the went through counseling. That didn't work. Confronted her about her affair. She lied about everything. And we were in a counseling session, which was kind of nice. It was a couple that we're doing the counseling with. So he could counsel me and his wife can counsel my ex wife or whatever. And also come together. I told him about what was going on that I found out about it. And so we tried to bring it up during a counseling session, and she just flat out denied everything. She lied about it. And then finally she apologized, but it was more of a I'm sorry I got caught kind of thing. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong and that was horrible. I broke down and everything, and she didn't really respond at all. And actually, come to find out, not find out, but another thing just came to memory was that there was one time when we're still living together, I asked her to about this relationship, and she denied everything, and I literally just broke down. I was on the floor, just begging her to tell the truth, and nothing, nothing, nothing. And that was when I was actually uh, I could see their communications because if you have the same Apple ID, if you log into something, you log in as the other person as well. So I saw all the messages over Instagram. And later that day, I saw messages between her and him about how she had absolutely no feeling for me at all when that happened, and that was that was pretty devastating. And yeah, then after we went through counseling and that didn't work, she decided to file, and just a whole bunch of just nonsense chaos through the whole process. It took 6 years. We finally finished earlier this year, and since 2019, I think is when she filed. and just no cooperation, no looking out for our son, no nothing like that. No, and accusing me of all these stupid things and nothing to back it up. The court system is very broken, and we had joint custody for until I want to say a year and a half ago, and there was a well, actually, when he was 14, so 3 years ago, approximately. So when he's 14, there was a letter, 2-page letter that he had written, typed, brought to the court, and showed it to the judge. Talked to the judge about it. It was later discovered and brought to the court's attention that his mom had actually typed it. Um, Her excuse was that, well, he can't type. He had problems typing. I'm like, he's had a Chromebook all his school life. That makes no sense. His My son's attorney also had an issue with it, but it wasn't. She didn't make a huge deal about it, and which she should have to the judge. The judge uh, saw whatever was on, and I wasn't allowed to see it. So I have no idea what it said, what was on there. I had no chance to argue or explain or defend myself at all, whatever it was. And the judge almost immediately was going to uh, give me like every other weekend and um, just take my son away for something that was arguably manipulated, coerced, in the judge presence. So, um, and which eventually happened. I did throughout a 3 or 4 day court hearing. Um, the judge determined, and not by any evidence, that I was not. My testimony was not credible for some reason, and I think it was based on the fact that I've been through quite a bit, and to remember all these specific things years ago, it was a little um, difficult for me to remember specific things and why things happen. So that's what ended up happening is I basically lost, um, 50-50 custody to every other weekend. And then about 6 months into that every other weekend, he decided he wasn't going to come over anymore. No encouragement by his mom to come over. I didn't know what was going on. I had no recourse. I talked to uh sheriffs. They're like, well, we can't make him. And since he was 14, he's theoretically old enough to kind of make his own decisions, and so there was nothing. And then from then on, everything just started. You know, he totally um, shut everything off. I think about me because he ignores me. He plays baseball. He ignores me at games. He ignores me when I go to pick him up. I'm, and the only thing that I can think to do right now is to constantly show up, be at all of his games, encourage him when I can, even though when he doesn't respond to anything, show up per the court order as far as picking him up on weekends. He has to tell me, I'm not going with you today. And then I ask him why, and I get no answer. There's been no back and forth discussion on what the heck is going on. So at this point, even even as recent as Wednesday, he was out of school, and I text her. We have to go over the Talking Parents app. I would do that, call her, text her, call him, text him. Hey, what's going on? How come you're not in school? Are you okay? You've been out of tardy like 17 times the past month. And he's not that kid. He's not that kid that's like always late or he does need to apply himself a little bit in school, but for the most part he's pretty intelligent kid. But he's not a and currently he has two D's, he's failing one class. He will not talk to me. She will not talk to me. I do have a good relationship with his school counselor, some of his teachers, his baseball coach, his regular counselor that I talk to once a month or so just to kind of touch base. Hey, this is what I'm going. This is my side of whatever, you know. It, so hopefully that helps her and counseling him, and that's even been diminished. It was every week, and since the custody changed, now it's maybe twice a month that he goes to see her. So at this point, I get absolutely nothing from them as far as healthcare. Um, you know, if he's sick or if he's going through something or you know dentist appointments or anything like that. She's convinced him that I'm you know I can't be with them in a doctor's office because she's the one that makes such a big deal about everything, and I just want to be there to learn. She's tried to get him on um, uh, asthma medication. She's tried to get him on, I don't think ADHD. However, when I started going through all this, she tried to do that with both the other boys. And oh, glasses, trying to get him into some kind of glasses or whatever because she thought he needed glasses. So, you know, me just being present there and talking reasonably with the doctors apparently is an issue with her. And she now has made it an issue with our son that he doesn't want me there at all because of all the things that his mom's. So currently, yeah, so I'm pretty sure I'm alienated.
So let's talk about your time with him when you did have 50-50 after this separation during the court divorce battle. What was your relationship like with him?
So during the 50-50, it was actually good. I mean, he was you know, he did the common teenage boy thing. Uh, I've raised two of his brothers, so I kind of know what that's like, and I know from being a boy as well as my you know my dad's son, and so I kind of know what that's all about. And he was the average kid. He's actually a little bit. He behaved better than the average for at least that I've experienced, you know, than his brothers and everything. So when he was around me, he was fine. We talked about things for the most part. There wasn't a lot of stuff that wasn't I guess off topic or anything like that. However, there I did learn that I needed to give him some time after I picked him up to do I call it his decompression time. Just don't talk to him. Just let him, you know, for a couple hours, let him figure stuff out, and then he kind of comes back to. I mean, at least the way I saw it, he kind of came back to his
Mhm,
being
mhm.
himself again and not having to uh, be mad at me, if you will.
So it was fairly normal considering everything he was going through, and then you lost that custody. Just a question that I'm thinking about. Um, did she end up staying with the coach?
Not that I'm aware of. He did come. He he has a very questionable TikTok account that he keeps open for some reason with young boys on it and stuff like that. And so he came to one of our son's games within a year after, I think, and I approached him and asked to talk to him, and he said no. And I was firm, not loud, not making a scene or anything like that, but I told him, "You need to stay away from my son." There's been other guys at games as well with her, and another time I after going to pick our son up and him not being there, she also came. She probably forgot that I was supposed to pick him up, but she was with another guy at that time as well. So I I don't know.
So since he's stopped coming over, you don't really know how he's doing other than he's not doing well in school. I mean, like most alienated children who are forced to make a decision to reject one parent, it takes an emotional toll, psychological toll on these children. And I can imagine for your son, he's feeling that to some capacity.
Yeah, I agree.
Hence the bad grades, tardiness in school. It's so common to hear this at that age that they start to fail in school or have poor grades. Tardiness is just a common thing we see. These kids are suffering from child abuse and no one is doing anything about it.
Right, and I would love to do something about it. However, I don't know.
Mhm,
Even I was told by a couple different attorneys that I presented, okay, well, she's not following. I think she's broke every single court order that there is. I could bring her up on contempt,
mhm.
but the attorneys that I've talked to said you can. It'll take you probably at least 6 months to a year to get a court date. More than likely, the judge will just slap her on the wrist and tell her not to do it again. Now he's 17; he'll be 18 in a year. If I don't see, the positives outweighing the negatives on doing something like that, which is ridiculous. And even when they gave me only every other weekend, they told, which is, and I have no idea where this came from, but the judge told me that I needed to go to counseling for coercive control, and I'm 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 really at a loss because I'm like, what is evidence of any of that? I don't see any of it. And there was none, and there has never been any. And the fact that the judge made all these rules and ruling, there was no, I was like, I asked my attorney, I was like, okay, well, then once I go through this, how do I get, custody back of my son? And he's like, you apply for custody again. I was like, the judge obviously didn't have any concern for this family unit at all. She just threw something out there with no follow up or anything like that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Did either of you have any psychological assessments?
No.
Interesting. But to your point about, and when I say that no one's doing anything, I mean like the court system to school. Um, so to your points about doing something now, the likelihood of any change is very minimal. He's of age. Pretty soon, they're going to say he's aged out. The lawyer's right. You'll file. It'll take forever to be seen. They'll slap her wrist, and then she'll continue to do it. And the reality is, in cases like this, even if the judge does say, "Okay, father gets full custody," he's at an age where he can decide not to go, and they won't do anything about it.
Right. And that's my understanding here as well, is like about 14, which is kind of questions how come this court thing ended up going past his age of 14, or at least him being 14. Is like, why was it pushed out that long? Was it because the courts are so impacted? I don't know. I'm little suspicious of why that was.
The courts are very impacted. I mean, I have a client that has been fighting for years and he finally got a trial. He had a hearing in October and his trial's in April. So, I mean, just out of curiosity, you battled for since 2019 until last year. W- Did you have to pay for her legal fees?
Fortunately, I did not have to pay for her legal fees, but I had to pay for my legal fees.
What
I,
was that cost? Do you know?
it was over 120,000.
So you spent all these years, 120,000 that could have went to your son's education or sports, trips, and you still walked away with the courts ruling against you. Tell me about your lawyer. How was that experience?
Uh, I went with a firm thinking, and they were supposed to be specialized with dealing with narcissistic personality disordered people, that sort of thing. So that's why I kind of chose them. And the things that they said on their, brief thing made sense. It's like, okay, well, I'm going with somebody that knows what they're doing, or at least knows what's going on. However, the first attorney that I had, um, she was good, but then she went on to a different um, place or whatever. The second one I had through the firm because she left was great. She knew what was going on. She did the at least she knew where I stood. So when something came up, she would ask me, "Okay, I'm thinking we'll do this." I was like, "Yes, exactly what I was thinking." Then she decided, or she see, she got married, got pregnant, had a kid, all during this time frame, and decided that this wasn't the work for her, so she left. So then I get this other guy, and he is kind of, well, that's the way it goes, or that's what the judge says, or whatever. So I didn't feel like I was represented the best way that I could have been and fought for the right things, because I don't know the different, for one, the terminology, for two, the different aspects of all the different rules and everything, and to find out that all these court proceedings and all these orders are, nobody follows them. And I'm the kind of person, I'm like, okay, well, if this is what it's going to be, then this is going to be, I have to deal with it. Okay, I'm ready to deal with it. Oh wait, no, she doesn't have to follow them, but I have to follow. Wait, what the heck is going on? And then to spend all that money in this, I'm like, this is just wrong.
So earlier you said that when you guys were going through the divorce proceedings, she said some things that were untrue. So you said that, are you implying that she made false allegations toward you or about you?
As
Or was she
far,
just saying things to confuse the courts about some of your behavior?
a lot of the whatever behavior it was very manipulated into something that it wasn't. For instance, let's see. In general, me wanting to know where our son is, or what, well, even at doctor's visits, and that I'm a problem at the doctor's visits. I'm causing all these issues at doctor's visits. That's something that she brought up to the court. Me being at baseball games, causing problems at baseball games or whatever, and I am not the parent that yells and screams at their kid and all that stuff. Hey, good job, or whatever. And that's it. Let the coaches do their thing. But she made a whole big deal about me being at practices. I'm not supposed to be at practices. She would, I call it the cootie game. If she was walking by me, she would purposely do one of these, or if I'm walking by or throwing something away, not even acknowledging her, she'd do one of those, and so that people would see her do that. And I'm like, why are you doing? And then at first, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, and then other time, and then I kind of was like, okay, well, then I'm kind of making a scene, drawing attention to her, because then she doesn't do anything, and then it's like, oh, what is he talking about? So then I just wave at her, and then people look and see her, and she's like, whoa. But it's just a constant making me look like a villain, even though there's no evidence, or there's not, I don't do anything, but she twists all those things into something that they're not. Like,
So how
for
about the
example,
older boys? Do you have a relationship with them? Do you ever hear from them?
yes, yep. Actually, the middle son just called me 2 weeks ago, I think. He's in the Space Force now, but he called me. We were talking about, oh, it was actually not even 2 weeks ago, it was for Veterans Day. So we talked a little bit then. So we talk probably every few months. He's kind of doing his own thing, and sometimes I can't get a hold of him anyway. And then the older son, I haven't talked to in a while. However, I do talk to him more often. And the older son is interesting because I usually send out a text to the boys, "Hey, it's your mom's birthday," or "Hey, it's Christmas. Don't forget to say, Merry Christmas to your mom." And I do it, if one of the boys' birthday, I'll send it to the other boys. "Hey, don't forget it's his birthday." Like my youngest son's birthday was Veterans Day, so I sent out a text to the older boys, "Hey, don't forget to wish him a happy birthday." Well, one time I said something about their mom birthday or whatever it was. And my oldest son called me and he said, Dad, this is kind of sucks to say, but I haven't talked to mom in, at that time, it was like 4 or 5 years. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, this is the part that, is not the good part or whatever is like, ever since I haven't talked to her, and haven't communicated with her, my life and my anxiety has gone way down. I can function better. I don't have any, health issues that, dealing with stress and stuff like that. And I just haven't communicated with her. And that was pretty telling as well, as far as okay. And a lot of the stuff for me was that okay, I'm going through this and I'm like, okay, is it me? Is this is am I the issue? Or am I making something out of nothing or anything like that? And that was the hardest part at first is just knowing that okay, well, it's not me. Even when we were married at the end, things were happening and people would say something like at Cub Scouts, this one, I did something for her son's mom and I forget what it was. She took it as something controlling. One of the women there said it out loud, and she may have said it loud enough that she heard. It was like, "Oh, I wish my husband would do something like that." And I'm like, but it didn't, you know, it hit me like, wait a minute, somebody saw something that I did. My intention was exactly what this lady said, and it wasn't what uh, his mom made it out to be. So then I just started observing other couples. I'm like, man, that guy was just a jerk to her, and I'm thinking, I was like, I would never do that to her. I'm like, why is she so angry at me all the time? And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
So that's, I mean, I just find it so interesting that the oldest, they still have a relationship with you with this. I mean, that's great. And that he recognized on his own the type of relationship he had with her wasn't beneficial for him. I mean, the one upside about that is potentially, I mean, it's sad to your point, it's good and bad because your son clearly is in that toxic environment right now. He is being afflicted with child abuse, being in her presence, not allowed to potentially speak with you or see you. But the hope is that he'll be like your oldest and recognize that. And when he becomes an adult, which is right around the corner, that he'll make that choice to have a relationship with you.
Yes. Yeah. And that is a lot of hope in that as well. And then the other thing I was looking at too is her brother lived with her mom in her garage for years. And something that happened was somebody had mentioned, I don't know if it was her or her sister, because she's one of three. She has she's the youngest, older brother that's like my age, and then an older sister that's a couple years older. Well, her brother and her mom, it was explained to me that they couldn't live with each other and they couldn't live without each other. And I saw that dynamic after, going through all this. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the same thing that was happening, with her mom and her brother, that he couldn't, he had a very hard time functioning um as a productive citizen, if you will, because he had that tie with his mother that was so tight that, he couldn't function. And they all lost their dad when, um, my son's mom was, 5, so they never had a father figure per se in all those years, so they don't know, and she doesn't know what a at least not experience what a father, relationship with a son is, because it's totally different than what a mom's relationship with a son. And I think a lot of those things that were, um, I don't know, prickly, I guess, if you will, between a father and a son, she didn't understand. And she made sure that it was always them against me. So that was, and I think that's part of the whole, uh, demeaning me or undermining me, or taking away any kind of authority that I had.
So, with the son being reliant on the mom, they create that environment. They take away their power and they teach them to become so dependent on them that they don't ever turn away from them. It's not an uncommon strategy in parents with bipolar or narcissistic or cluster B that they want those children to be so dependent. They actually take it away from them and they only then become reliant on that parent. Sounds like that was the case with the brother and the mom. But on the flip side, with your oldest, it was opposite for him. He recognized that, and you got to also take into consideration that you were there to help raise those boys, so you taught them some independence. You taught them what it's like to have a male figure. So although that relationship did go away after the divorce, they learned a lot from your presence.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, that's what I'm hoping with our youngest too, our
Yeah.
17-year-old, is that, I had enough time with him to at least disrupt the total, I guess it's called enmeshment or whatever, with
Yeah.
his mom, that at least there's something in there that's still, telling him that, hey, you know, he's a young man. He can go out and do things on his own. He has that capability and not have to always rely on his mom for everything.
So that is a good piece because you did have him until he was about 14 half of the time. And that's huge. That's the ages where they're learning to be independent. And then when did you, if you can recall, when was your last visit with him, like parenting time with him?
So it would have been Christmas. Christmas was weird. Um, he came over and it was kind of like he was there just to get whatever his presents were and then leave, which is not really him per se. So I don't know what that was about. Um, but prior to that, it was Father's Day, which was really strange out of the blue. Well, I was supposed to, I think, have him anyway. I tried to contact him on my hours, whatever that was. I don't remember. And then he eventually got back to me and texted me he wanted to go out to dinner. So I picked him up and we went out to dinner. And for the most part, he was himself. Not a lot of deep questions. However, the average questions and the average responses for a 16-year-old. Um, but then at the end, it got kind of strange as far as I've been since the breakup or whatever 5 years ago. I've been trying to get him out to see his grandparents and his parents and everything. And so we try to do at least a yearly trip out to Vermont. And this year, I asked him several times, "Hey, can you respond to me as far as going out there and get a confirmation?" And he wouldn't give me a confirmation. Then at Father's Day, "Oh yeah, we're going to Vermont." I was like, "I I need a confirmation from you that we're going, because I can't just blanket buy a ticket and expect you to go when you won't even go with me, on a weekend." So that whole thing, he got a little upset or whatever, pissy about that, and then he's like, "Well, fine, then I'm not going." And then that was kind of the way it ended ish. So, but other than that, it was. the kid I've always known. But since then, I was like, "Oh, this is great," and I've learned to take the whatever little pieces I can get. But after that, it was back to the same thing. No, I'm not going over to your house, and no response to any rarely any text or anything.
I think it's important that you're still present. I think it's important that you still show up and reach out within reasonable limits because studies have found that these children, when they become adults, those are the things they remember. Because that other parent is trying to tell them that you're not interested, that you don't care, that you don't love him, that you don't want to be present. Behind your back, she's making it all about you being unwilling or undesiring his time and that you don't love him. So I just have to emphasize how important it is that you continue to be present. You show him you're there. You show up at practices. You stay engaged. And like you're older and you're middle, m- maybe that he'll recognize, hopefully with as much time as you had, he'll recognize that. As we come to an end, do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Uh, this whole process has brought me to places that I'd rather not be in my head. There there has been times that I'd much rather be on the island drinking myself to death or other things. However, through this process, my faith has kept me from doing destructive things, from drinking, from doing drugs, self harm, just anything that I would regret later. And I think for anybody going through something like this, faith has an amazing strength in the fact that you're fighting for your kids, and whether it be physically or spiritually or emotionally, this is a battle, and you need to be in it for your kids and yourself, and you need to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, like when you're on an airplane, you got to put that oxygen mask on first before you help your kids, and just to keep 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 going.
Matthew, thank you so much for being a guest, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable. And I'm confident, at least I hope, that he'll find his way back and you're doing all the right things.
Me too, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for putting this out there, and hopefully it'll get more attention and do something in the courts to help at least try to stop a lot of this from happening.
Great. Thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone in it. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.